Hello and welcome, fellow bookworms and film fans. Welcome to this week's episode of The Content Narrative, where we'll be looking at The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe from the Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. It was published in 1950 and then it was adapted to screen in 2005. Now, we will be looking at three things as we always do: how good is the book, how good is the film, and of course, how well does the plot take from the book. So, let us begin with the film. Now, this film I first watched with my sister Nikki. She got it on DVD. We're not quite VHS. This one. This was definitely DVD. And it's such a magical and whimsical story. It's set in such a truly amazing place that you kind of want Narnia to be in the back of your wardrobe. Now, obviously, I have some points to pick up on it now that I'm older. So when you're younger, you're kind of like, oh my god, I want to do this. I want to. Then you're older, and you turn around and go, Edmund is a little bit of a horrible person. He sold out his family to the White Witch on the promise of being a prince and having more Turkish delight. Now I appreciate, obviously, I have a lot of siblings. You probably heard me mention a couple throughout the series. There is 8 of us in total. I'm the second eldest. So obviously I appreciate that when you've got other siblings, you do fight, you do argue. But I can honestly, hand on my heart, say I would never sell them out for some Turkish delight and to be a princess. That's literally, and the fact that obviously when you're younger you're like, oh yeah, he's been brainwashed by the queen. At one point, even he knows he's doing wrong, but he still does it because he wants what he wants, and it's like that is a very selfish attitude to have, young man. But I mean, the fact that 4 children are basically in charge of a war against a witch as well, in a magical place they didn't even know existed, is again troublesome, but the way that it's handled is really quite nice. The fact that Lucy, who is the youngest, doesn't even have to fight, and she comes in and basically revives everyone that was injured throughout the fight. Edmund does get injured, but then he gets revived by Lucy. It's just sort of like they go through a lot, to be fair, considering that they were escaping the war, and they then run into the back of a wardrobe, find this magical place, end up in this age-old battle between Aslan and the White Witch. It was intriguing. But honestly, I do like the overall storyline. The visuals are absolutely brilliant. They honestly are. And when they first walk through Narnia, when Lucy first goes through and she sees the fawn and you've got the lamppost, it's just amazing, amazing to see. And honestly, it's so beautifully done, especially when it's sort of changing from winter to spring to summer, because the White Witch's spell is breaking. Again, you just sat there going, oh, that's nice to watch. And honestly, it just brings back very happy memories of just sitting down and watching this film at home with Nikki and Paul, and just basically bits of my childhood, really, the better bits of my childhood. So this film definitely gets it gets an 8 out of 10 for me. It really does. Now the book. Now, as I said, the book is one of the Chronicles of Narnia, and it is amazing. The storyline is done so expertly, so that if you're a child reading it, you won't get lost in the storyline, and there's nothing that you can't quite comprehend. But if you're an adult reading it, it's not oversimplified, and it is something you can just quite enjoy. Now, because obviously I read them in order, I did read The Magician's Nephew first, and I wasn't impressed with Magician's Nephew. I have to say, I was kind of sat there going, I don't like the characters, I don't like the story, I'm a little bit kind of like, I wanted it to be over. So that didn't leave much hope when I was going into The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. However, I was pleasantly surprised. The storyline was a lot better, the characters were a lot better. You felt, as I said, apart from Edmund, you felt a lot more for them, and you were sat there and you wanted them to get to where they were going. The fact that the Lucy, who's the youngest, just straight away believes everything that's going on. She goes through a magical wardrobe, she finds a magical place, she makes friends with the fawn. Yeah, why not? That's how life is. And I love the fact that so you've got Lucy kind of believes it. Edmund is trying to be like a grown up, but he's like the second younger. So he's like, and even when he calls out and goes, no, this didn't happen, and Lucy's like, no, but it did. You can see kind of, and then obviously you've got the 2 older siblings who are trying to be parents, who are trying to be adults. In the case of as I said, they were sent away during World War II, so they're trying to kind of be grown-ups. So it takes them a little bit longer to sort of get there as well. But honestly, they play the characters so well. They create these believable characters. And you just sat there going, oh, kind of, I want everything to work out well for them. Obviously, I read the book after I watched the film, so I knew everything worked out well for them, but I still kind of was invested with how they got there. You see the dynamic work very well as well within the siblings. And I think that I got that very well, and they wrote that down very well, because more often than not, you find that they oversimplify things, or, they stereotype sibling relationships, and you just kind of sat there going, that's not really how it would work. But honestly, I love the whole magic of Narnia. I honestly love the descriptions. The story is imaginative, lovely, and honestly, you feel so satisfied by its ending. So this lone story in the Chronicles gets an 8 out of 10 for me. Now the plot. Now, both narratives start with the 4 children, Lucy, Susan, Peter and Edmund, living in a big house in the country as they're being sent away from London due to the war, due to the Blitz, basically. So then Lucy goes through the wardrobe to Narnia for the first time on her own. She ends up, because everyone's sort of like exploring the house, and she ends up going through and meeting a faun called Mr. Tumnus. She ends up taking tea with him, where he lulls her to sleep and is about to hand her over to the White Witch, but then decides not to do it, and lets her go home. So then in both, Lucy comes back into our world, but she's only really been gone a minute, whereas obviously in Narnia, time is different, so it was like a whole evening basically for her. So no one believes her about the wardrobe, and she ends up being teased relentlessly about it by Edmund. The other two kind of go, it's all right, Luce, little girl, everything. Edmund is a horrible, horrible child and teases her relentlessly. Again, siblings, this does happen. So no one believes her about the wardrobe, and she ends up, being teased by it. So then they kind of just carry on. And then another rainy day has them kind of playing hide and seek. So Lucy then goes back through the wardrobe by accident, but Edmund this time follows. So Lucy goes off, she has lunch with Mr. Tumnus, but Edmund ends up meeting the White Witch, who is the villain of this piece. She coaxes him with Turkish delight and like hot chocolate, and she finds out that he's one of 4. So basically the prophecy is when 2 sons of Adam and 2 daughters of Eve come through, the White Witch's reign will be over. So obviously she now finds out there's 4 of them, 2 girls, 2 boys, and she basically goes, if you bring your siblings to me, you can be a prince, you can have all the Turkish delights in the world. And he agrees. It just baffles me. I'm sorry. Turkish delight isn't even that nice. So then, anyway, as they're both leaving, Lucy sees that Edmund has been in Narnia and is like, oh, yay, so, I'm being proven right, basically. They go back through, and Edmund flat out lies about going to Narnia, and this causes Peter and Susan to snap at him, and Lucy to run off crying again. So Susan and Peter try to talk to the professor who's looking after them, and he basically says, well, have you ever known Lucy to lie? She goes, no. And they go, well, have you ever known Lucy to do this? No. So then she must be telling the truth. So anyway, they then end up kind of exploring the house again, walking around, and then they hear, the maids or whatever come up. So they all kind of run and hide, and they all end up in the wardrobe together. So all 4 of them end up in Narnia. So then this means that Edmund has been proven a liar, and because Edmund has been proven a liar, even though he wants them to go to the White Witch's castle, without trying to make it too obvious, they then decide that Lucy can decide everything that's going on. By the way, I have to say that Edmund did dob in Mr. Tumnus as well to the White Witch. So they then head off, and they realise that Mr. Tumnus has been captured by the White Witch because he was helping Lucy, and it's considered betraying the White Witch. So then Lucy goes, well, we have to help him because it's my fault that he's been captured. So then they go, oh, okay, then, we really should help him. Edmund at this point is going, no, but the White Witch could be all good, you never know. So they realise they have to help Mr. Tumnus, and they end up kind of following this bird in the forest, and they end up meeting Mr. and Mrs. Beaver. So then they learn, Mr. and Mrs. Beaver tell them about Aslan, tell them about the White Witch, tell them about the upcoming kind of meeting and everything. And while they do this, Edmund runs off to be with the White Witch. And that's when they realise that they've been betrayed by him. So this means that the Beavers are like, well, we have to get out of here, we have to move, we don't know how much he's heard, we need to get there before he does. So they head off straight away to meet up with Aslan. Now, there is a slight difference here, as Santa does come into the book quite early with gifts, but just a little bit later in the film. However, in both, he does give Peter a sword and a shield. He does give Susan a bow and arrows and a horn to blow when they're in danger, and Lucy a vial of liquid that will restore anyone to health, and a small little dagger. So anyway, Edmund is now fearing worse off, as he is now a prisoner of the White Witch. Ha ha ha. Because he's realised he's been tricked. Took him long enough there, Peter. Edmund even. What am I saying, Peter? Peter's fine. However, the spell in Narnia that the White Witch has cast appears to be breaking, and it is becoming more like the spring and less like winter. Now, in the film, at this point, the gang was chased by wolves working for the witch across the river. They almost drown as the frozen lake has started to melt. However, they do make it to the other side successfully. This doesn't happen in the book. And also, when they meet Aslan in the book, the stone table is with the pavilion and everyone else, whereas the film, the stone table is apart and off into the distance. So in both, however, Susan and Lucy, when they finally meet up with Aslan, they go off and they get attacked by wolves again in the film, but first time in the book, and Peter ends up killing one. But then Aslan sends animals to follow the remaining wolf, and they find and save Edmund, because he is a prisoner and he is an idiot. He is also a little boy, so we kind of need to give him a little bit of slack. So this brings the witch to Aslan's court, asking for Edmund's blood, as he is a traitor and it is owed her by an old blood oath. So Aslan, however, turns around and goes, "Have me instead." So Aslan heads off to the stone table as a sacrifice, and Susan and Lucy follow. They see the White Witch kill him, and shore off his mane, and obviously they're heartbroken. However, deep magic brings Aslan back, because he put himself in the place, but he's not actually a traitor. The deep magic has revived him, which he knew would happen. So then him and the two girls head to the White Witch's castle, where Aslan's breath brings all the statues of everyone back to life. So the liberated statues come to the aid of Peter and his army against the White Witch, where she is then killed. Now, in the film, the battle does go on a bit longer. In the book, it is just one page. It's literally they arrive, she is killed, they revive everyone, it's over. In the film, it's quite a long sequence. However, in both, Edmund is injured. He's almost dying. And when Lucy remembers a vial from Santa, she revives him and everyone else injured. And Aslan turns the statues back on the battlefield back to their correct state. So after the battle, the four children are crowned the kings and queens of Narnia, and Aslan slips quietly away into the distance. So the four grow old together, they rule together, and then one day they're out hunting, and they're much, much older, and they come across the lamppost. And while walking, they end up coming out of the wardrobe the same age that they went in. So they see the lamppost, they start walking, they go through, they come out, and it's literally just been a couple of minutes. But eons of time have passed in Narnia. So it ends with them talking to the old man and realising that it may not have been a dream. So the plot was pretty much identical, apart from obviously slight differences, and I can understand why they made the battle scene bigger in the film. It is like cinema. But like, honestly, it's almost word for word. It's absolutely brilliant. The characters stay the same, the plot stay the same, the betrayals stay the same. Like, every little bit that they follow is exactly the same. And honestly, it is a very close and loyal adaptation. So it gets a 9 out of 10 for plot from me. Now, obviously, this is my own opinion. Of course, if you agree or disagree with anything, please leave it below in the comments. Don't forget to click subscribe and to like this video, and you'll be alerted when a new video is available. But until then, remember to always keep it contento.